Satnam. Hello, everyone. Satnam, we're going to talk today about a very special topic. Today we have ahead of us the topic of death. We're going to talk about what is the process of death, how do we die, what is the common experience that many people who go through a near-death experience, how it is when they come back, what is the experience that they describe, how they experience it. And we're going to talk about what is beyond that, even beyond that, from the perspective of yoga. Today is a special day for me. Today, 20 years ago, my father was diagnosed with a cancer, white blood cancer, myeloma multiple. And exactly this day, 20 years ago, and exactly this day, 3 years later, he passed away. Satnam, Satseva, hello and welcome. So he passed away exactly 3 years, which is what the doctor had told him in the consultation when he was diagnosed. They told him it's exactly 3 years that they said you have around 3 years of life, and he died exactly 3 years later. So I don't know how much of that was the power of the mind and how much of that was like it was to come. And the doctor somehow said exactly what it was. But somehow when I put the date of today for streaming, I wasn't planning to stream today. Then later I realized that it was today. So I thought, well, topic of death is such an important topic, and I haven't talked about it yet on the channel. A few times I mentioned it, but I thought there will be a time when it's the right time to talk about it, and today feels like the right time. So I will talk about that. I will talk a little bit about my personal experience in relationship to what my father went through. And I had a shared death experience with him while he was dying, and through the process of death the following days. So I had a personal experience of going through the tunnel, and I will share that, and I will describe how it was for me, and how much it changed me, and how much it affects the way I relate to life and death now. A lot of it comes from there. I wasn't even teaching back then, I believe. Maybe I was just beginning to teach. I had just heard the call. So, important topic today, what awaits us beyond the tunnel? What is on the other side? How do we know that? How do we know what people go through? The people that go through the tunnel and come back and tell us what it is. And how can we prepare ourselves for our journey when we have to go beyond? And what can we do for the people who are close to somebody going through? So for the family members and the loved ones of somebody passing away. Satnam Infinity, hello and welcome. So this is the topic for today. It's a very sensitive topic. So if you are sensitive to the concept of death and dying, and you are troubled by this topic, I wanted to forewarn you that we are going to talk in depth with it. And so if it's not for you, then there's plenty of other videos you can watch rather than going through this. However, if you can go through the discussion on death, it can bring a lot of solace and comfort and peace to find what the yogic teachings tell us about what is beyond. Well, I find peace, at least, and many people who actually go through these kind of experiences experience that. In fact, it's one of the things that most commonly is most found in common in all the people who have a near-death experience. When they come back, they talk about the peace that they find afterwards, and during the experience and afterwards. So let's talk about that. We have an amount of information that we know from near-death experiences, NDEs it's called. And one of the interesting things is that 95% of the people who go through that experience, they describe something that is medically and scientifically unexplainable. And even though there's been a lot of research on this topic recently in the recent years, it's still, there's some controversy, because how can you prove what they are saying is true? And yet, over 95% of the people who go through a near-death experience and they go through the process of dissociation from the body and seeing what is happening around them from outside of their body, what is called an out-of-body experience. Those who can relate exactly what happened to the body, when they come back to the body and they explain everything, there's no way to understand how that's possible from a scientific perspective, because there is a lot of records now of what the person goes through, and when it's declared that a person has died, the brain signal goes off. So it's not just that the heart stops beating, but the brain, the electricity moving in the brain, the sensors that are registering the mental activity detect no mental activity. And yet, those people who are dead for 5, 10, 15 minutes, even more, they experience themselves being pulled out of their body, and then they see everything from above or from the outside, and they can describe perfectly what was happening around them, what kind of method did they use to try to resuscitate him, what kind of operation were they doing at that time, the surgery, what was happening in the waiting room with their family members or loved ones, and they can describe everything that happened, and they can say, look, this nurse went and talked to my wife, and he said that to her, but then, and then they can describe everything that happened, and the brain was dead, or it was, let's say, switched off. So that's unexplainable from a scientific point of view, and that's why, to me, it is so interesting. This out-of-body experience, this very first thing that happens during a near-death experience, can already bring somebody out of the skeptical position that we generally take from a Western perspective of, let's believe what science says, if you can prove it, then it's fine, otherwise I'm going to disbelieve it. And I was certainly into that category of people. I became a scientist, an engineer actually, tried to pull as far away from a spiritual life. My parents were spiritual, my sister as well, all yogis, and I was trying to pull away from that. And I had a similar experience, not a near-death experience, but in 2001 I had an out-of-body experience, and I saw myself outside of my body and seeing everything that was happening. Maybe someday I will go in detail into that, but I knew for sure that experience was true, but I also knew that science could not explain it. Now, coming face to face with a realization like that, it's already putting into doubt, when we take we take science as a religion, right? We take science and the provable, and anything that you can test, that's true, anything else is not true. Well, the moment you have an experience like that, you have to re-question everything about life. So that experience of out-of-body for myself was certainly a moment of coming back to my spiritual side and contacting my sister. And I remember how happy she was that I was asking her, okay, so let's say I want to explore spiritualism. I don't even know how to say it. No? And I remember I was trying to tell her that I was opening the gate or the door to having a conversation about this. So I think that's the experience for many people. And not many people have an out-of-body experience just by itself. Many people have it through that near-death experience. But in any case, that out-of-body, that being outside of your body, it's already confronting enough. Let's talk about some of the symptoms that are, or let's say the things that happen during that near-death experience that many people go through and then they come back. Out of body is one of them. Another one is the moment that they leave the body, whatever was happening to the body is gone. So that whatever pain or suffering, if it was traumatic, especially many of these that are being recorded is because they are in a hospital. So there was something wrong, some accident or some disease, and there's pain and there's suffering. The moment that the spirit leaves the body, all that suffering goes away. And there is an immediate sense of relief and peace that comes with it. And out of the body and out of that sense of peace and seeing their body from the outside, they can just stay there and come back. By the way, many of these experiences are subjective, so everybody will explain it in one way or another. Some people go through some stages, some people go through all the stages, so it can vary. But the next step that certainly is recognizable is the tunnel, a famous tunnel. Some kind of dark thing, some dark place, and you go through it, and there's some sort of light at the end. Some people will say that there is lights in between. Some people will say that the whole tunnel is made of light, it's just the end is much brighter. And the tunnel can be many different shapes and forms. And I will describe later the way I experienced it. I will go into that a little bit more in detail when I explain how it was for me. But in any way, there is some form of tunnel, and there's some sort of bright light on the other side. And as you go through the tunnel and you get to the other side, you are entering into a different realm. And this realm, there's generally most of the experiences that people describe is extremely beautiful and peaceful, serene, and loving the experience, a lot of love, unconditional love. And there's often some sort of spiritual beings or beings of light or teachers or masters or guides, and there could be even family members there. And somehow there's something glorious about meeting them. And it can happen in that moment when they are coming out of the tunnel as well, or it can be some other moment in that experience that they review their life. So the life flashes before my eyes. This is a common expression. It's like you see the highlights of your life from birth to death, all going through, or just one part of your life. You're seeing all these images, and you are not only seeing the images, but you're also having some sort of evaluation of whether something was good or bad. That experience was good, that experience was bad, and how did it affect you and how did it affect others? It is said that sometimes you may experience this as the one doing it and as the one receiving it. So if in your life, let's say you gave a slap to someone, you see yourself giving the slap and then you feel the slap. So it's like you feel the consequences of every action that you did. So the karma, we could say karma is, a sequence of events that you initiate, and that action is going to have a reaction that is going to come back to you. So, giving the slap and feeling the slap at the same time is like coming to terms with karma. So they review their lives in 3 seconds. There's generally some form of judgment on this life. And then these light beings or spiritual beings or guides or family or something like that, or a voice, will somehow say to them, it's not your moment, it's not your time, you have to come back. Or they will be offered the chance to choose whether they come back or not, and then they may come back to be with their family or to support their family or loved ones, or for whatever reason they decide to come back. Now that's the great majority of people have this kind of experience, which is generally very pleasant and very joyous and beautiful. But there is another group of people which, when they get there, their experience is one of hell. So they would describe it in all sorts of forms, and they could be music. Somebody, I remember describing it like some death metal music sounding in the background, and they could see images of what they would expect that hell is. And this is an interesting thing, because it's the way they would be ready to accept that kind of image. So even whether it's an image, a divine image, or whether it's a hellish image, it comes according to every person's culture. So maybe a Christian will see some angels. And maybe if you are a Chinese, and maybe you will see a dragon, or maybe you will see some sort of monk. If you are a Buddhist, maybe you will see a lama with a particular hat. So it's according to your culture that what you perceive over there, it goes according to what you have experienced in life. So it's something that you can understand, something that you can relate to. But in any case, there is this kind of heaven, kind of hell, let's say. And universally, the experience is that they are not ready, it's not their time, or they have to come back, or they decide to come back, and then they come back and they tell us their experiences. This is why we know, because they can come back and tell us the experience consciously. Not everybody who goes through an operation and they are dead for 15 minutes remembers this, or not everybody goes through this. We don't know, because they say they didn't have any experience, they don't remember anything. It could be that they have the experience and they don't remember. It could be that they don't remember then, and years later it will trigger the memory, something triggers the memory and then they remember. So we don't really know if that, if they go immediately and then they don't remember, or whether they are not having that experience. They are still attached to the body, waiting for the body to be resuscitated, let's say. So we don't know that. But for all the people who go and then they come back, their explanations are according to these guidelines that I gave, these little steps. And they are very universal. No matter which culture you are, you go through this idea of a tunnel and the light. And I mean, not everybody goes through all the steps, as I mentioned, but no matter which culture you are, you will find this concept of tunnel, this concept of viewing the life passing in front of your eyes and emitting a judgment. All these concepts will be happening in common. So that's interesting. Well, this is the vision of people who go there and then they come back. However, we have another source of knowledge of what is beyond, which is yogis. Because in yoga, you can learn to go through the tunnel by your own meditation and experience what is the beyond, and then choose to come back. So there is a lot of accounts from yogis who will describe partly this whole process, as I just mentioned, but also what is afterwards. Because as I mentioned, at some point they are told it's not your time and you come back, but what is beyond then? So we have these accounts of yogis who go into the beyond, and we know what is there, and that's why we can talk about that. So this is the main idea of what I would like to share today. The idea of what is the beyond, compared from a number of yogis, including my spiritual teacher, Shiv Charan Singh, and his teacher, Yogi Bhajan, and a number of them who will talk about these things. And also talk about it in the perspective of us from here. So let's go slowly into the process. This moment when the life flashes before your eyes. Now, this is a very important moment. This is, we say in yoga, there is a place where it's like a metaphor. Yeah, it's not really a place, but let's say everything that we did was recorded. Everything has been recorded somewhere in the ethers, let's say. It's called Akashic Records. Now, the moment that we die, first of all, we recommend that in yoga, we recommend that the soul departs through the crown, through what we call the 10th gate. And we should not lose energy through the holes in the body, eyes, the nose. Now, the holes in the body are very much, particularly the holes around the head, are associated to the senses. And we know when we are trying to meditate, for example, that it's through the senses that we get distracted, we go away and outside. So in the moment of death, we need to collect all of ourselves, concentrate to depart through the right space, which is different. This place is different from an astral traveling experience. When you are having an out-of-body experience on astral traveling, you depart from the navel, and there is like the silver cord connecting your astral body to your physical body, and that's a healthy connection. You need that cord. But the moment that you die, you don't depart through the navel; you depart through the crown, ideally. And part of this is why, I think it's in the Greeks mythology, they would put 2 coins to pay the boatman to get into Hades, yeah, to cross to Hades. And it's like a story, and they tell you a little fairy tale to put these coins on the ice, but the purpose would be that the ice are heavy and they would weight on the lid, and somehow they would block from so that let's say your energy, the life energy of yourself, does not go out through the senses, but it goes through the crown. That would be the idea. Now, as you are going out and as you are reviewing, the moment you are going out, you are leaving your physical body, you're leaving your organs, you're leaving your energy, even the energy of the physical body. And as you are going out, you connect to these Akashic records, and then you visit your life. And that moment of visiting your life, we say in yoga, is like 3 seconds. In 3 seconds, there is 3 things happening. One is like, you see everything that was, everything that happened, and it's like anything you believe that you did wrong, and everything that you believe that you did right. The moment that you're reliving that experience, you see what you did and the impact that it had in somebody else. So you have that double side. You see it as it is, as what happened, whatever happened. So the first second is what happened, and then the second, it's not really a second, right? But we call it like that, like the 3 seconds, let's say. The second part is, okay, so all that happened in your life. So what? What does that mean? What then? Well, that's when you evaluate whatever happened. What does it mean that I lived my life in this way? And now what would be the third part? What's the consequence of that? And generally, it's just like that. Some people who have the near-death experience and they relive their lives, they realize all the things that they could have lived better, let's say. So they meet a certain judgment of what they did wrong about their life. Well, the day of the final judgment, this judgment day, this is it. This is when you are reviewing your life. Now, who emits that judgment? It is not Saint Peter, or it's not some angel, or it's not somebody outside of you. It is our mind. So we are dropping the body, we're dropping the energy, the paths, the chakras, everything that is down here in this physical body is dropped. And the last thing we drop, the mind, the last thing the mind does before crossing is to see everything that happened and to emit some sort of judgment. And that judgment is going to be critical to determine what kind of experience comes afterwards. Remember, some people experience a beautiful kind of heavenly paradise, and some people will experience it like a hell. Well, that experience, whether it's positive or negative, it's determined by the mind. So if you evaluate your mind, you look back and you determine that you led a bad life and you did many wrong things and you should be punished, you are sentencing yourself to a certain kind of hell. If you can review your life and be at peace with what you did, no matter whatever mistakes we may have committed, then you are sentencing yourself to a good path. And there is an alternative I would mention as well. So the mind can be in negative state or positive state or neutral state. And these 3 aspects of the mind, this is what we cultivate during meditation and many yogic practices, because we consider that if you live your whole life feeding and strengthening that negative aspect of the mind, which is judgmental in a very punishing way, let's say, the moment that we die, when we experience our life, we're going to be in that mode, in the judgmental mode. So if we are used to living life as a victim and saying everybody is guilty, then we will go into that punishment. But if we feel like we are guilty of whatever we did, then we're going to be also in that mode, the mode of punishment. Somebody has to be punished. So we want to cultivate that capacity in during life to neutralize thoughts, so that the one very important thing that happens in the last 3 seconds after we are leaving this body, when we are leaving the mind, to emit the highest judgment, which would be to be neutral. And we will talk about this in a moment. But that's critical, to develop that in life, so that the moment that we die, we have that capacity to access that neutral mind. Now, something that is going to help us do that is to have a mantra. So there is a concept called Prana Sutra. Pran Sutra is a mantra that you choose in life for the moment of death to accompany you to the beyond. So when we are in these 3 seconds that you are experiencing all your life, hopefully if you have integrated the mantra within you strong enough during life, and you were vibrating with every breath, vibrating that mantra, I inhale Sat, I exhale Nam, or I inhale Wahe, exhale Guru, or Alleluia, or Allah, or whatever mantra you chose for yourself, if you cultivate it enough during life, to the point that if something unexpected happened, suddenly there was an explosion, Waheguru, the first thing you would say would be that. We want to ingrain it so deep in the brain because we don't know how we're going to be dying. There may be an accident, there may be people around us screaming, there may be ambulances, there may be shouting and crying, and who knows what drama will be around us. And if we are not trained to be able to go back to our center, we can be pulled away through this trauma and forget this idea of neutralizing thoughts and then emit some sort of judgment when we get to that point. So if we train in life to Waheguru, a shock, then the moment that life is gone and we are into death, which is, the only thing that we have guaranteed in this life, that we're going to die, so we better prepare for it. So if you, during life, train in that way, then the moment that death comes and the moment you see your life, you can say Waheguru and remind yourself not to fall into that kind of judgment. So that's a little thing that we encourage. Now, because we're going to be reviewing life and emitting some sort of judgment in that moment, something you can train yourself to do as well is to do that judgment now, consciously. So you could do some special meditation for yourself, and you can close your eyes and you can look back into your life, and you can basically look at it this way. Let's say it this way. Do I believe I did anything wrong in my life? And whatever I did, is there any possible way that I can go back and rectify it? Or I can go to that person and compensate them in some meaningful way? And realize that there is actually no possible compensation for whatever we did wrong. Therefore, let's not even go there. Let's not even try it. Then let's take the other side. Do I feel that somebody did something wrong to me? Something evil, something that made me suffer, something that has stuck with me all these years, something that I wrote in my little list of wrongdoings, the black list. Is there something that somebody did wrong to me? Now realize that whatever it was, that person, they cannot compensate for that. There is nothing they can do or say that can compensate for all these years that you suffer that, no matter how sincere they may do it. So if there's no compensation, let's not go there, let's not seek it. So can I look back and can I let go any form of claim of any need for compensation or blame somebody? Can I let go of any projection of claim and blame I may have done onto somebody? Somebody did something to me. Can I liberate them from that? Can I liberate myself from that? And if we can explore that consciously through our meditation here in life, the moment that we die, if we are at peace here, we can be more at peace the moment that we have to cross through this gate, the gate of the first 3 seconds. Now, when you go beyond the physical body, when you go beyond the mind is the thing of us that perceives time and space. So the moment that we cross through these 3 seconds and mind disappears, then we are all spirit. It's actually our subtle body with our soul body, but let's not overcomplicate it. Then time does not really exist in the same way that we perceive it here. So everything I'm going to say from now, what happens during the first 3 days, what happens during the first 10 days or 17 days or anything, this is all from the perspective of those who are left behind, those of us who are still in the planet. The people who go beyond, time does not exist for them. So we need to take that into account and consider that. But let's say for those of us who are here, what happens during the first days? Well, it is said that during the first 3 to 5 days, the soul stays around the body, but on a horizontal plane, which means that it doesn't travel too far, it doesn't go up. In this horizontal traveling, it's like the soul is visiting the loved ones and it's saying its goodbyes. So this is very, very common to have. Let me give an example. A young man is sleeping and then wakes up suddenly and sees his mother on the foot of his bed, and the mother is and he's like, "Oh, what are you doing, Mom?" "No, it's okay. You can go back to sleep." "Oh, that's so weird." And he lives in Japan, and let's say the mom lives in Germany, right? And the next morning he wakes up and they phone him, and your mom passed away last night. So there is these apparitions, this presence or visualizing, actually seeing the person in front of you and having some sort of connection, an opportunity to say your last goodbyes. And some people regret after they have somebody, a loved one who dies, that they regret that they couldn't tell them something that was stuck for years. Brothers who don't speak to each other and they're 20 years apart and they have this grudge, and the moment the other one dies, suddenly they feel this is so silly to hold this grudge, and they wish they could have said something nice to their brother. Well, if it's during the first 3 to 5 days, do it, say it, speak it out loud or in your heart, because the soul is listening, is right there, is around. And the idea would be, I'm trying to combine the experience of the person who is going away, but also the experience of the people around. This is the time not only to say what needs to be said, but to do it in a way that is going to help them find peace to go in the journey that they have to do, a journey that we will explore a little bit more. So during those first 3 to 5 days, this is the moment to the opportunity, what we say, the right attitude to gratitude. So to thank them for being in your life, for having been part of your family or your friends, or just being next to you. And thank you, and go on, go up, go to the light. Don't stay here, don't get attached to here. Any farewell that you can give, and thank them, and on their way to let them go. So during these 3 to 5 days, they have this time to say goodbyes and to prepare for the journey. And then comes the journey where they cross into the beyond. Okay? All right. If there is any question, you can ask. I am trying to be very slow and step by step, but I may miss things, and it's easier if somebody asks any question. So now, when they go into that beyond, the soul is entering into the astral planes. That's why we call it astral traveling, the out-of-body experience, because you're going into a certain realm which is beyond this physical realm, but it's an astral field. It's a field around the planet, and this field is contained by, let's say, the electromagnetic field of the Earth. If you wish to say it like that, you could say it like that if you wish. This field is full of all sorts of wonderful and horrible things. This is the angels and the monsters. This is every heaven and a hell that you may have imagined. In the astral realms, there is these 7 hells and 7 heavens, and every comic book that you read, every story that you heard, every myth, it's all there in some way, in some particular form or another. And you are like a ghost leaving the earth. but you're still within this magnetic field of the earth, let's say. Now, it is at this point where, and again, you will see it very divine if your judgment upon your life was good. If your judgment was bad, you will see it as very hellish. Now, it's at this point that you are not coming back. This is where I was saying the near-death experience. Most people are told in that moment, this is as you can reach as much as here. Please go back. It's not your time. Now, if it is your time, what happens then? Well, there is one description. I like the way Yogi Bhajan puts it. Is like there is some sort of how did he put it? Like a lodge, like a cabin in the woods, and there is some sort of party, and there's family members, and there's other maybe guides or spiritual beings, or you can see Jesus or who knows what kind of light being that you may imagine, and they are calling for you to go with them. And this is what I'm saying. If you go with them, then there is no coming back. But those of near-death experiences, they don't cross that line, let's say. Well, that kind of lodge, that kind of cabin in the woods, let's say, is part of these projections that are happening in the astral realm. What I mean by this is that in the astral realm, there's a lot of fantasy being played out, and not all of it is real. You know, when we see an angel, what does it mean? Angels are not this super pure, fantastic, full of light, beautiful being. Angels, there are dark angels, gray angels. There's all sort of hidden agendas that they may have. They are disincarnated. They are these entities that are in this realm, and they present themselves as angels to us. But do we really know it's an angel? And even if it is, what does it mean? So in yoga, we say go to the source, go to the light, go to the origin by yourself. Don't have an intermediary. Don't expect anybody to be an in between you and God, you and the divine. So go straight to the source. So what I'm saying is that if we emit a certain kind of judgment, whether we have been good or bad, and we deserve to be rewarded or punished, and we go into this lodge, it's like we experience that thing that we think we deserve. Pitraloka, the ancestral realm, Satnam Infinity, thank you. You mean the first loka, the first the astral realms that I'm talking about is what you mean? What do you know about Pitraloka? Please tell us about it. So you enter into this kind of lodge, and then you experience what you think that you deserve. So in a way, Shiv Charan once I remember he explained it in an interesting way. It's like a beehive, and there is these cells, the little cells, and it's like your soul goes into one of these cells, and then it's like in these cinemas, there is this movie screen like Omnimax, all around you, and they put a movie. So you kind of go into this little space, still within the astral realm, and then they project this kind of heaven that you expect, or this kind of hell that you expect. And you kind of sentence yourself to a certain amount of heaven or hell, and then you go into that space, and it can be a wonderful thing or it can be a horrible thing, and for some time, and then eventually until it's time for you to come back, and then you reincarnate. You're referring to when I mentioned the party? Excuse me. The dead ancestors that you meet. Ah, right. Yes. So what we say from yoga is, look, your grandpa or your grandma that you are seeing, they are not really them. Because your grandfather has been reincarnated already long time ago. So what are you seeing? You are not really seeing them. You're seeing a projection from your who knows? I'm not sure whether it would be your subconscious or some part of their subconscious self gets projected there. Because this idea that you can see monsters or beautiful angels or something that is according to your beliefs and your culture. So if I'm from a different culture, if I am Hindu, maybe I will see Durga or whatever. So it's something that is according to your culture. Now, that means that there is a kind of fantasy. So when you see your grandfather there, is that really your grandfather? Most likely it's not. Your grandfather probably reincarnated. So what you are seeing is some sort of vibration that is communicating to you through something that you understand. So you understand your grandfather, so you see your grandfather in some way. So what the yogis tell us, and Yogi Bhajan will say, follow the cold, lonely path up the hill. Shiv Charan will say, it's like a little, very narrow path up a mountain. Very cold, very narrow, very difficult. Or like a little narrow path, and it's very easy to fall one way or the other, and it's like the edge of a sword, and you just have to walk across it. And now this path, this is going beyond this lodge, beyond these beautiful and horrible things that are trying to capture your attention. This is beyond this plane of the realm of the astral realm. So there is something beyond the astral. That's what we call the ethers, the blue ethers. Now that beyond the astral, you have to cross through the astral to get there. And it's very easy to get fascinated by what you see around in this astral to get to the ether. So what the yogis who have been there and they come back, they tell us to not get fascinated by what we see around us in this crossing of the astral realms, but rather go to this lonely path, this cold and lonely path. Well, let me just make a little pause here, because I imagine that it is possible that for some people's experience, when they describe that they go into some form of heaven, what they describe is they are being called to the blue ethers. It's just that they don't have a language for astral or ether. It's not part of their system of beliefs, and they don't know how to recognize one or the other. So it can be that a Christian dying and crossing through and seeing the ultimate light, the light of the ethers, let's say, and crossing through the lodge and the cabin and all the other things and going straight for that light, and they will just say, I'm going into heaven. Now, that may be a different experience from the heaven and hell that I was mentioning about the astral realm. So I'm not saying that every culture who believes in heaven and hell, they got it wrong because there's something higher. I'm not saying that. But heaven and hell exist. They exist on an astral plane. However, there is something beyond, and that's the ethers, and that's where we want to get to. And some people may go into that, but they may articulate it like they are going into a heaven. Hopefully, that came across the right way, because it's not easy to talk about this, but hopefully it came across clearly. Infinity says, I don't think that's hallucination. You meet them because reincarnation can take different time to different people. Some may come back in a second, some others may take years. Most of the astral travel here is hallucination, since one can't perceive sensory experience without the gross body. So, I mean, you don't think that's hallucination, but how do we know? You say reincarnation can take different for different years, for different people, but how do we know? The thing is, we don't know. And when you see somebody who looks like your grandpa, you don't know if it's your grandpa, because there is a lot of hallucination in this astral traveling. And that's the challenge. Now, when you die, do you want to go with your grandpa, or do you want to go, or what you think is your grandpa, or do you want to go with God? So that's what I'm saying, to not be confused on where we want to go straight to the light. Don't go for any intermediary, let's say. And in the astral travel, there is hallucinations. Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, they are very real hallucinations. It's not just something that you see and doesn't exist. There is entities, and there is these vibrations in that space. And I know them, I've seen them, I've been there. I've had my first awakening was through an astral body experience, and then I got a little bit fascinated with that. That's why in yoga we say that, why do you leave your physical body? Why should anybody leave their physical body? We do not recommend astral traveling. We do not recommend out-of-body experiences, because your body is sacred in a way, and you can experience everything in your body. Why should you leave it? Leave it. However, I've been there, I've done that, and I've seen what is on that side, and there is some very real entities in that space. It's not just hallucination like images, but there's actual entities in that space. So we need to take that into account. However, that's the thing. You see, the grandpa, is that really your grandpa? We don't know. Yeah. Hopefully, I'm expressing it clearly. Please let me know if it's not clear, or you want to, or you see it in a different way. So let's say that we go through the tunnel and then we experience life crossing in front of our eyes, and we remember Waheguru. And through our practice and our meditation, we bring the mind one-pointed, and we forgive ourselves, we forgive everybody else, and we neutralize everything. So no negative, no positive, just neutral. And then with that energy, with that vibration that you set up with the Waheguru, the mantra that you have, you don't have to use Waheguru, you can use any mantra that you align with. With that vibration, then you can go through, beyond any fascination, beyond anything, any beautiful or worrisome or horrible thing that you see. Go beyond to the light. And that can happen it can happen instantly, possibly, if you have meditated already and developed the capacity to cross through while in life. Otherwise, I don't know why this number, but it is said that 17 days is the least amount of time that somebody would take to get there slowly by themselves. But again, this is the time that we perceive from the earth, so I don't know if it makes any sense anyway. But okay, let's say that you managed to cross, that we managed to cross into the ethers, and this is what we aim to. Well, what are the ethers? What are these blue ethers? Again, talking about this is really hard, very difficult, and we use kind of metaphors to try to explain it, but it will be, it's metaphors at the end of the day. Because I saw a video in YouTube, somebody was describing it in a very nice way. It's like, imagine you go to a place that is a three-dimensional space in color, and then you come back to life, and life is like a bidimensional, like a page in black and white, and try to explain to the people in the black and white page what it means to be in a three-dimensional space with color. So it's how to translate that experience. And many people who have the experience of the near-death experience, they describe that that's a much more real experience than actually being here in the planet. So it's difficult to talk about that in a way, but we will do an effort. So let's talk about these blue ethers. There is 5 of them. And if you are fortunate that you can cross the astral realms, then you get into these blue ethers. And the first one is called, by the way, it will have different names from different cultures. The Buddhists will call them in different way. But from the Sikh Dharma, from the Sikhs, we'll call it the 5 Khans, realms. It's a universal space. Everybody goes there, every soul goes there, but it's just different cultures will call it in different ways. So the first one is called Dharam Khand, the Khand of Dharma. And as you come into this first realm, the first blue ether, this thing that happened in these 3 seconds that you were experiencing live, this is that was like a preview. Here it's much more extended. You see every detail. And also, you have the perception of why you went to the planet, why you incarnated. So when it's our time to go and incarnate from death, to go into a baby, into a mother who is pregnant of a little baby, when it's time for us to go there, our soul chooses the mother, chooses the family in which is going to be born, because that's the family that is going to be most ideal to work out the karmas that we have to work on. And there is a number of karmas that our soul chooses to work on. So there is like, let's say 2, 3, maybe 4, maybe 5, probably more like 1 or 3 big karmas that you want to work on. So in this life, this is the main karma I'm going to be working on. This is the lesson that I have to learn. So you choose which family, which siblings, which mother and father, which situation is going to be great for me to have to work on that karma. So that's something that happens before we incarnate. Now, when we die, if we get to the blue ethers, now, if we don't get to the blue ethers, maybe I should say this as well. If you just go into the astral realms and come back, there's really no learning done there. So you die, you go into the astral plan. Maybe it's a wonderful space, it's very heavenly, it's wonderful, but there's nothing really learned from that. So you come back to earth and you have to learn your lessons again. But if you get to the blue ethers, that's where the opportunity for learning comes. So as you go into Dharamkand, you experience your life, you explore your life, and you say, well, you remember, this is why I went to this life. I went to this life because I wanted to work on this karma. Now, how did I do? And then you explore your life and you see how you were working on that karma. And it's like, now you understand how everything that was happening because of your previous karma. And you are the cause of everything that was happening. It wasn't because it's my mother's fault or whatever. No, it was me choosing that. Infinity says, where are we? In previous times, still in a specific families, they keep reincarnating in the same lineage, same place, same ancestors, because they have deep knowledge on connection on a genetic and metaphysical level. That's right, yeah. So we tend to be attracted by the same people often, yeah. I remember hearing, maybe somebody will tell me if it's true or not, some kind of saying in China that if our sleeves brush, as we walk, if they brush in this life, they will brush in the next, something like that. So there is this connection that is created amongst people, and it's very common that we stay within the family or lineage. Or sometimes in one incarnation you are the father and she is the daughter, and the next one she is the mother and you are the son, and it can happen like this in many ways. And so we keep exchanging karma, but hopefully learning something out of that. Well, if you get to the first blue ether, the Dharamkand, it's like, imagine there is they are telling you, look, this is what you did, this is what you could have done. I mean, not like that, sorry. It's more like, okay, this is what happened, and it was cause of karma. And so you realize that the law of karma is behind that. And as you come into the second blue ether, that's Gyan Kand, the Kand of wisdom, the realm of wisdom. That's when they say, well, this is what you could have done differently. Okay, so there's teachers there is all sort of teachers, let's say divine beings, imagine like a university. I don't know, I'm just using metaphors here to try to explain it, but imagine a university of light beings explaining how to deal with karma. And then you are like, okay, this is what I did in my life, and I messed up again. Well, you could have done it differently. You could have done it in this other way. And then you see different possibilities. And, if you have to reincarnate from that blue ether, you go back to earth. But now you have, and inside of you, there is some knowledge on how to deal with it. So when you come into the next life and the karma repeats because you haven't dealt with it, you will already have some knowledge on how to deal with it. Infinity says that's done consciously. In China, they learned the Tibetan Book of the Dead to die consciously, but originally it's from Yoga Nidra and specifically Bardo Yoga. Yeah, that's right. So yes, particularly I was thinking about how much in Tibetan yoga they explore the passage into death, but it's in many traditions, not just the Tibetans. But yes, there is some very advanced practitioners can go into that consciously, and they don't have to. That's the thing, you don't have to die to go to these ethers, right? Shiv Charan has explained a number of times how through some meditation he will go through the tunnel and go there and have connection with the teachers in that space, in that realm, and then come back and teach what he's learning. So there is a process that you can do consciously. It's not necessarily the same lineage. Yeah, I don't know what kind of lineage would that be. However, the lineage is just the end is the same. The place is the same. The ethers are the same. You may call it them in one way or another. However, and our understanding will be dissimilar in some ways, but these realms are the same at the end. Well, this is why it is taught. Well, the second blue ether was the Gyan Khan. Let me talk about the third blue ether, would be Saram Khan. Now, in the first one is like, you see what happened. In the second one, the second one, you are given some lessons of how it could have gone differently. The third blue ether is called Saram Khan. Saram is like, you could translate it, the realm of spiritual happiness. And this is where it's not just that they tell you, well, you could have done it differently, but this is like a main upgrade of the system, like Ardaas 2.0, or 2.5, or 3.15. It's like an upgrade of my whole system and my whole understanding. And by the way, there's a little description of this in the Japji Sahib, in the sacred prayer from Guru Nanak at the beginning of the Holy Book of the Sikhs, the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. And he talks about, in the Saram Khan, he says, Surat Matman Buddha. So he's saying that Surat, your consciousness, your intelligence, your mind, and your buddhi, which is kind of your intellect, they get refashioned. So when you incarnate after that, because so far you have to incarnate. No matter if you get to this point, you're going to have to incarnate. There is still karma to work out. However, it's not the same to realize, well, this karma was yours. That's the first blue ether. And they say, okay, well, hopefully I'll do better next time. Second blue ether, well, this is how you could have done it differently. And then you receive some learning. And then you come to the next life with a certain advantage, let's say. Or the third blue ether. When you come back from the third blue ether, it's like your whole system is upgraded, your intelligence is different, your consciousness is different. So next time the karma comes, you can deal with it in a different way because you are more ready to that. You have been upgraded, let's say. It's like some bugs were taken out of the system. I'm using computer science metaphors. You can tell I was a computer scientist. So this is Ardaas 3.0, yeah, coming out of the third blue ether. What is the fourth blue ether? Well, the first three are very much connected, one to the next. So it is very common that you do 1 to 3 and then you come back to life. So it's not so common to get to the fourth. And I already, entering into the blue ethers is a blessing. Getting to the fourth blue ether, that's rare. That's a very rare event. And it's a great blessing that you may be welcome there. Because getting into the fourth blue ether, that's liberation. That's when there is no more karma to be dealt with. That's when you are freed from all the karmas. You've learned through them. You've learned the lessons. You upgraded yourself enough times. And you got to a point when you can liberate yourself. And by the way, that liberation can happen not only during life, it can happen in the moment of death. As you are dying, you may let go completely of any attachment to any claim and any blame and anything that you feel guilty or victim of anything. Totally, absolutely, and put all your love in Satnam or Waheguru or Allah or Buddha or whatever. And through that, get fully liberated. And if you do get fully liberated, that's where you go, the fourth blue ether. Karam Khan, this is where Nanak says, look, whoever tries to describe this, they're going to regret it. But then he goes on and tries to describe a little bit of it. So that's kind of funny. But yeah, there is a great grace to get there because there is no need to come back. Now, you may choose to come back, and there may be even some negotiation with God, let's say, to come back to serve other humans, but it's not necessary. That's the fourth blue ether. The fifth blue ether is there's nothing but God, and there is like total union with God, and there's no coming back. If you go into the fifth, there's no coming back to an incarnation. So who knows what happens there, because that's just total union with God. All right. So I described the 5 blue ethers, and it's like beyond. But at the same time, I want to mention 2 things. One, I did say that you can connect to the blue ethers, and you can even go there through the power of your meditation. You can go through the power of your meditation through the power of your meditation, you can get to the gates of heaven. You cannot storm them and cross through. You can get there and humbly ask for the grace to enter. There's no guarantee. But you can do your work, do your discipline, do your labor of love to cultivate your neutral mind and forgive and all these virtues that we talk about. And if the grace comes, then you can be welcome there. However, these 5 ethers also happen in a way in life. So there is sometimes in life when you have a realization, a moment of aha, a moment of seeing the light, a moment where you realize, well, that's why I'm doing this. That's because my mother did that before, and I saw that, and I picked it up, and now I'm doing it. And then you realize the connection. This is like the first kant. This is like seeing your karma, seeing how this attitude that I'm having is because I inherited it from my previous karma. I'm not blaming my mother. I'm just saying, I chose my mother, right? In this life. So I chose it. So this is my karma. There can be a second level. You can receive teachings when you go to a training, and then the teacher says something, and that is causing an aha in you and a moment of realization, and then you realize you can live life in a different way. This is a little bit like Yang Kan is coming down. The second blue ether is coming down. Third blue ether, your consciousness, your mind, your intellect, it can be reshaped while in life. You may do a strong meditation, 40-day sadhana, pilgrimage, Camino de Santiago, walking to Santiago de Compostela in Spain, or a pilgrimage in India or Japan, and you may come out a different person out of that. So there can be an upgrade. This is like the third kant, like the Saram kant. So these ethers, let's not see them like something very, very far away, but they are actually accessible to us. You can experience them very closely when you are teaching. If you are I think many teachers, particularly yoga is something that I teach, so I feel more connected to that, but maybe healers will experience that as well. You are connected and there's some sort of flow through you, and something is coming down, and sometimes you are speaking something and then the words that come out through your mouth surprise you, even you, and you're saying your words and like, whoa, that's interesting. That's really nice. I didn't know I knew that, because I didn't really know that. It was just coming through me. And then the moment it's coming through you, you can feel there is a moment of this special, like you are connected to these ethers. They are coming through. So you are just talking through that space. So that's saying that these ethers are happening here as well in this world. Let me know if there is any question or comment on that. So there are 4 kinds of death. The first kind of death would be simply when the prana runs out, and is what we call a karmic death. You have a certain amount of energy for life. And when it's over, it's over. When it's done, it's done. And you may be having a nap. You may go to sleep. Or maybe you have to go and you choose to go through some particular karma. So you have some sort of accident, but it's actually your soul chose to go through that accident because you have to have the karma of being run over by a car, so you go into that kind of karma and then you go away because the prana was over, it was enough. And then through the moment of death, if you hear somebody die, in the kind of breath that they have, they are trying to run out the end of the prana that they still hold in the body to go to the beyond. So first type of death, that's prana runs out, karmic death, simply. The second type of death is when somebody lives prematurely. Let's say that they don't want to continue living and they make the decision to go out early. Let me say it like this, you know what I mean? I don't want to say that word. I've heard that it's not good for YouTube, so I don't want to have some sort of censorship on the video. But let's say somebody who doesn't want to continue living and they decide to live. Well, the problem with that kind of death is that you still have prana with you. And any problem that you thought were going to disappear by departing, they don't. They stay with you. And you enter into this astral realm around the electromagnetic field, right? But you have prana still, so you cannot really depart. And the problem with being disincarnated is that it's very difficult to utilize the prana you have left. Shiv describes it as like these images of a ghost with a chain and a big ball attached to the foot. So the prana is like that big ball attached to the foot, and until they run out of it, they cannot go. But then also they many times don't know they are dead, and sometimes they may see the light, but they ignore it out of whatever attachment they have to whatever happened to them. So sometimes they may stay around a special place. It can be the house of somebody, a family, or a person, and they are haunting that space, and they are attached to it, and they don't even know. Maybe they don't even know. It's like this Sixth Sense movie by Bruce Willis. It's very much like that. So it can happen that they stay trapped in that realm. So that's no escape. It may look like an easy escape, but it's actually a trap, because then it's much harder to actually process the prana that you had and to be able to go away. And in that case, you depend upon some good Samaritans, some souls, and some special people who have the capacity to connect to those who are trapped in this realm and help them go to the light. And in this realm, in the astral path, there is also some beings who have reached this fourth blue ether, and they didn't go away. They decided to stay for service of humanity. So they go there and they are trying to gather those to try to help them go to the light. Infinity says, for many yogis, the moment of realization is same as death if they haven't learned the science behind the body and soul connection. It's the same as death if they haven't learned the science behind the body and soul connection. I'm not sure if that's what you mean, but that's one of the 4 kinds of death. Maybe I will talk about that one and then you tell me if it's what you mean or not. Maybe that's what the soul chose before coming. Not really. The soul chose the circumstances around their life, all the drama and the tragedy and whatever suffering they went through. But when we choose that, we hope that we can learn enough that we can go through that and let's say cutting the cord too early, that's not an escape. And that's not a choice that the soul does. That's a choice that the ego linked to the mind is making as a way of escape from the drama and the tragedy of life. That's not the soul choosing that. The soul has a higher perspective, let's say. And the soul knows that this is temporary. So it's difficult to see it like that. So that's the second kind of death. The third kind of death is what is called accidental. And it is said that even in this universe where we imagine, this divine intelligence guiding everything that is happening, it's said there is some space for randomness, so that there can be grace and there can be accidents as well. If it says you notice most of them die very early age. Yes, well, that happens. unfortunately, you can see it most in the recent times. There's more and more young people choosing that. And that's an unfortunate sign of where our society is right now. I saw a lot of that in Japan, and it's coming to here now, here, Europe and the West. There is a lot of that, and it's very unfortunate. Satseva, thank you for all the service that you do with that. Maybe you can tell us more about what you feel regarding this point. So the third kind of death is accidental. And the third kind of death can be something like it was totally not in the plans that this person should die in this moment. But then because this person dies and still has some prana, let's say you have enough prana for a good life, but then your life is cut short through this accident, and then you still have 2 years of life to run, let's say. I'm kind of being a bit simplistic, but let's say it like that. Well, the universe has this kind of system. When there is this kind of accidental death, then your soul can go, without going into the astral realms and the blue ethers or any of that, it can go straight into some nearby, relatively nearby mom, ready to be, and incarnate quite immediately into some other baby. And the baby is born, and the baby has only 2 years of life. So the prana is very little, and then maybe we'll choose a family which has this strong karma of losing a baby when it's a very small. And so this soul is attracted by that. It goes there, is born, but it has only 2 years of prana, and then it dies very, very early age. And that could be one of the reasons that it came into life with very little prana, or this, you see this it can be also like losing a pregnancy immediately, right? Through the pregnancy, there can be a lot of prana moving, and then it may lose the pregnancy and we don't know why, or a very early baby and it can die and we don't know why. So there is this mechanism that could be happening there. Infinity says, I sent something before this. I think you missed it. It's about another kind of death. Sorry, you said something about another kind of death. I have a fourth kind of death. Let me talk about the fourth one, and then you tell me if it's that one. Okay, we are in the third now, the accidental one, and let me say that the fourth one is called Jivan Mukta. That's dead while alive. That's when a yogi cuts the root of death in the life. So if you clear your karma while alive and you are freed from the need to be incarnated again, so you liberated yourself through the life, you are dead while alive. You are alive, but you are not here anymore. Not here. You're here, but you don't have to be here, and you don't have to come back here. So it's called Jivan Mukta, and this is sometimes called dead while alive. I remember you mentioning something about the same as death, being the same as death. I see the message on the top is the same as death if they haven't learned the science. Is that what you mean? The fourth kind of death? Or what kind of death do you mean? Can you explain it a little bit more? I will try to check if I missed any message from you. For many yogis, the moment of realization is same as death if they haven't learned the science behind the body and soul connection. I'm not sure if that's what you mean. It might be that one, the fourth kind of death. Satseva says, does the soul not choose when and how they live? And the people have the karma to experience it, and it all aligns, therefore it makes the choice. I'm still trying to understand this phenomenon. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows, really? Who can tell that? Who can say that they know for sure? Well, I remember asking a Shiv about this accidental death, because it sounds so weird that there can be accidents in the universe in a way. But he said, yes, even God sometimes will go, oops, what happened here? So how could the soul choose that? I would say that the soul doesn't choose that. Now, the soul may choose when it's time to go. And so, for example, let's say you have a number of karmas to work in this life. You are incarnated. You have a number of experiences. You work on those karmas. Now, one of the karmas that you have is that you should die out of some physical disease, like cancer, for example. Now, your soul may choose, according to the environment around you, your family, your loved ones, that this is the right time to do it. And so the soul may accept that karma to manifest, and then the process of death starts, which can take a number of years or longer or shorter. And so the soul may have initiated that process. It can also be that the soul decides that it's time to go, and so we are in a car and something happens and something breaks and your car is in an accident and you die. And it was just your karma to be dead through a car accident. So that can be something that is destined as well, and your soul may choose. So that's why from the outside, if we look from the outside, we see a car accident and we don't know. Is that an accidental death? We don't know. It could have been the first death, a karmic death. It could also be a second death. You know, somebody, maybe they just decided it's enough and they turn the wheel in the wrong moment, let's say, in the highway, and then they die. So from the outside, seeing somebody who is dying out of a car accident, we don't know what kind of death that is. That's something we don't know. Then, when somebody decides to die by themselves, I don't think that's the soul who does that choice. I think the soul chose the experiences that they had to go through in that life, certainly. So it was their karma to experience it, like you are saying, no? The people have the karma to experience that. It all aligns for them to have that kind of experience, but not the way that they decide to depart, because we make decisions from our soul, but they are not similar to the decisions that we make from the mind and the ego. And they are different things. And I hope that that's something that becomes very clear, that sometimes your soul may want you to learn something, but we are so trapped in our mind games that we choose to do something else. Right? That's quite clear. The soul is asking us to do something, and yet we think that we cannot do it because of whatever drama or tragic thing has happened to me. And so I prefer to go into the hole of desperation rather than actually pull myself together and go through whatever I have to go through. So that going into the hole, we don't have to do it, but we choose to do it, unfortunately. And that's because we succumb to the hardships that our mind with the ego is doing. I don't think that's chosen by the soul. Let's see, Infinity has a few messages. Some yogis experience Mahasamadhi. So advanced samadhi is like energy becomes so intense and many yogis haven't learned how to maintain it, or even if they have a weak body, they can't hold it. At the moment of enlightenment, the soul may choose to leave the body. It doesn't want to be limited anymore in any way and want to merge with the infinite. Yes. Yeah, so, okay, so, even if they have a weak body, they can't hold it. Even if they have a weak body, they cannot hold it. Many haven't learned how to maintain it. Okay. Yes, I mean, there is this concept that Icarus, the one who flew too close to the light and got burnt. So yes, there is such a thing as going so close to the light in meditation that you may get burned from it. I think this is part of these stories about people who have an awakening of the Kundalini and they have a bad experience, and they talk so much about it. There's a lot talked about that. Part of it is that yoga is a whole holistic system that includes everything, even the body and the mind, emotions, everything. So if a yogi has a very weak mind, like you are saying, a weak body, how, they are trying to develop their one-pointed concentration and awakening of some enlightened state, but their body and their nervous system is not ready to contain that. Yes, that can bring all sorts of problems, and they can merge with the infinite. Well, one drop of water goes back to the ocean. Wonderful. How can that drop of water come back and tell us, I am one with God? If they are really one with God and they are just one drop of water, they will disappear into the ocean and they will not come back. So that's not something that we desire, right? In the enlightenment or the liberation, we want that drop of water to be crystallized enough that it can feel. It's what Carl Jung would call it the individualization of the spirit. Yeah, that's your soul being crystallized enough that even if you depart here and connect to the divine, you are still this little crystallized drop of water, let's say. Hopefully that's clear. Satseva, tell me how you are doing with this concept. I know it's something very close to you, so tell me where you are. Well, from yoga, we learned that if you want to prepare for death, if you want to be ready for death, there's a number of things that you can do to be ready for the moment that when we have to die, because that's coming anyway. So why not get ready? And there is a number of things really, really practical. One, when we do Mula Bandha, and actually the whole bandhas, Uddiyana Bandha, Mahabandha, Mula Bandha, Uddiyana, Jalandhara Bandha, the three of them. When we do all the bandhas, I talk about this in a video when I talk about the granthis and how to break the granthis. Undo the knots, I call it, not break the granthis, but undo the knots. Well, when we are doing the bandhas, and we start with squeezing the bottom of the body with Mula Bandha and then Uddiyana, then Jalandhara, we are bringing all the energy up to the crown, which is the path that our soul is going to take the moment that we have to leave this earth. So through this practice, when we are meditating strongly or some particular strong kriya, we are contracting, which, by the way, that's going to be strengthening your nervous system and preparing your physical body so that if that experience of samadhi comes, you can hold it. What you were saying, infinity, that's strengthening yourself to be able to hold that amount of energy. So those bandhas are going to help a lot. Another thing that can help us prepare is in the deep relaxation after a yoga class, and especially every night before going to bed, to let everything go, to let go of everything and have that sense of gratitude for everything that happened in life and be ready to meet whatever has to come. So fully go through the mental process of letting everything go. It's not asking for death to come, but it's like learning to fully release and practicing non-attachment. And another thing that can prepare us is, I've been talking about this the last days, cold shower. Every morning, cold shower. Because that's the path of the lonely mountain. Remember this little path up the hill that is very cold, narrow, and it's difficult. It's not the beautiful lodge where there is some party going on. It's the little path up the mountain. So the cold shower in the morning, that's like facing the biggest fear, facing your ghosts. When you come out of bed, warm, beautiful bed, comfortable, and then you go into the cold shower, you are ready to meet the coldness of life. And then after that, nothing can shock you, because you shook yourself every morning, so that nothing can shake you afterwards. Oh my God, my English. I would share a little bit about my experience with near-death experience. Later I learned that it might be called shared death experience. It's something that I went through when my father died. The days right afterwards, I had been learning. Okay, let me start again. In yoga, there is a healing practice called Satnam Rasayan, where you can learn to connect to somebody empathically, let's say, through your consciousness, and sense what is happening in the other. So I had been connecting to my father throughout the illness that had been developing. I mentioned at the beginning of the stream that it lasted for 3 years. So he went through all sorts of up and downs, and we were connecting to him, my sister and I as well. I mentioned my sister because she was also doing Satnam Rasayan, not because my mother wasn't connected to him, but because we were doing this kind of practice as well. And so I was familiar with the feeling that I had when I was connecting to him. So it was it was a learning experience when he finally died, and we were after he went away, after he gave his last breath, which was a very beautiful way of living. He waited for me. I couldn't go. I was trapped in Barcelona trying to find a flight to come back, and he couldn't hold on anymore. His kidneys were not working. He was in the hospital, and he got fully sedated because the pain and the lungs were filling with blood and liquid. So he was fully sedated, but he waited for me all night, and my mother and my sister spent all night praying, and I took a flight the next morning, and I came into the room of the hospital, and my family was there, my mother and my sister, and we all held hands, and we took my father's hand, and fully sedated, my father pressed my hand and pressed a few times to let me know that he was there, which was already very surprising to me because I wasn't expecting any kind of reaction because fully sedated. And then he died in the next few minutes after I arrived. So it was just arriving and dying. And it was a very peaceful way of going, and we could do everything that we wanted. That we could chant some mantras, and we could pray, and we could hold each other, and the hospital was really, really nice, giving us the space to do what we wanted to do. And a little bit later, my sister and I would connect to him through Satnam Rasayan. And something was very interesting, that the whole feeling we had been experiencing of like being trapped in a jail, it was gone. The feeling was of incredible joy and lifting and ecstatic and opening and freedom. Freedom was the word. And I remember how paradoxical it was that I was feeling very sad. I was feeling very bad with his death, and at the same time I was connecting to him and I could feel this joy. So that was really strange mixture of feelings. Let me read that message first. I have a few. Infinity says the desire to come back indicates some left karmas and samskaras some yogis live them consciously on to come and serve. Otherwise, becoming infinite forever is the ultimate goal. Yes, crystallization, as you mentioned, is a very small desire when one experiences being infinite, because that is impossible with a body. Those some yogis sacrifice and come back here. Those, I guess, same yogis sacrifice and come back here. It's a paradox. You're crystallizing into a point of light, and through that point, you come into contact with the infinite. So both things are happening at once. It's not like you choose one or the other. They are both connected. But yes, those yogis who reach the liberation free from their karmas, they may choose to come back to serve others. Yeah. And Niana Satseva says, I had read in Dr. Brian Weiss' Many Lives Many Masters that the soul chooses when and how it goes. Not sure. though it seems like despair is the connection from the soul, disconnection from the soul? I would say mostly yes, but again, the mind and the ego make their own choices, and they may be in disagreement with what the soul wants for us. Or would you say that everything we do in life is according to what the soul wants? Or would you agree that sometimes, actually most of the times, we do things from our ego, and they are not dharmic choices, but they are actually karmic reactions to what's happening around us? If so, if we agree in that, then some decisions which could eventually end up in us losing our life may come from the ego, not from the soul. Let me go back to my story with my father. So the paradox was there of feeling the joy and feeling the sadness at the same time. Then we were in the before the funeral, I don't know, I think it's called the wake in English, when they prepare the body and people, family can come and they can say their goodbyes. So we were there in this room and in front of the coffin, and my sister and I were sitting next to each other, or very, very close, and she started to chant the Japji. Remember, it's in the Japji that is chanted every morning, so she was chanting it, and the end of the Japji is when there is the blue ethers. So as she was chanting the Japji, I closed my eyes to pray, and then I kind of lowered my head a little bit like that, and I was doing my prayer. And as I was in that space of prayer attitude, I could see the feeling, what I saw was just like, how do you call that? The elevator shaft, an elevator shaft, the whole of an elevator. So I was kind of looking down, and there was this tube going down, and imagine that every floor below you has a little ring of light, like it's going down 1 level, 2 levels, 3 levels, like going down. So I remember being in this posture and seeing these rings of light going down this elevator shaft, and realizing, whoa, that's going very deep. And then I thought, well, if it's going down, maybe it also goes up. So I inwardly, I guess, I don't think I moved my body, but then I chose to look up. And then I saw these rings of light that were going upwards. So that tunnel, now I will talk about it like a tunnel, but it was this elevator shaft, was going up and up and up, and there was these rings of light going higher. And as I looked up, I started to be propelled through this tunnel very, very quickly, and crossing all these lines of light. I could see them passing by very, very quickly, and going up towards the top of this hole, this shaft, and up into some light. So as I came through, what happens is I felt it like this. Imagine there is my head piercing through the earth. So imagine that, the earth, and there's a head coming out, and only my head pierced through. And as I came out through the earth, at that moment I saw Yogananda. Paramahansa Yogananda is the guru of my family, really. We've all read the book, Autobiography of a Yogi, and it deeply touched all of us, and it's a book that we have in our hearts, in all my family. And so if we have a guru sustaining the family, let's say, it would be Paramahansa Yogananda. And so as I crossed through, I saw him, and right next to him was my father. But my father in a very young body, like he was his 20s or early 30s. Her perfect, beautiful yogic body, like sitting in lotus pose, like one of these pictures from an old yogi, hatha book from India. It looked right like that. And the sky was not blue, it was a gold. The light of the sky was very shiny, and it was not blue, it was all gold, a gold light, but really, real gold. Not like a diffused golden light, but it was all gold, color of gold. And so I was very surprised when my head comes out and I saw my father and I saw Yogananda, and I wanted to say something to my father, and I understood that Yogananda was telling me without using any words to not disturb him, to let him be, because he was doing his work. He had to do something. He was working on himself. And so I understood that. And then my mind kicked in. And then my mind said, well, if there is Yogananda, I could feel, or the teacher, I could feel I was in the middle of a circle. And so I was like, well, if this is Yogananda, because I could see my father, Yogananda, and I could see the beginning of another shape. And I thought, who else is in this circle? And I wanted to turn around to look. The moment my mind kicked in, I got back through the tunnel back into my body. So I got absorbed into the body. I'm actually not sure whether I saw the tunnel again or not. I don't remember now. But I definitely felt like being absorbed back. And I'm like, oh no, why did I have to let the mind kick in? Because he was having this incredible experience, and then the mind went in, no? So as I came out of the experience, I opened my eyes, and at that moment my sister finished the Japji, and she looked at me, and she was having a surprised look, and she asked me to talk to me, and so we went away a little bit. And she told me that while she was chanting the Japji, she felt that there was a circle of gurus, all the gurus around us, like Guru Nanak and, Guru Tegh Bahadur, all the gurus around us, like one big circle. And our father was part of it. And it was so incredibly similar to the experience I was having as I came through my head. And I knew that was not an imagination or a fantasy, but it was an actual experience. So I went through that experience, which would be similar to what somebody does when you die, only I wasn't dying. I was just connecting to my father going through the process. Now, what I understand from this experience, and asking Shiv later, is that this was my father in the Khans. Now, normally, what I said before about how many days it takes to get to the Khans or not, the blue ethers, I don't know. It could have been that I was having a vision of the potential of where he was going, or maybe he went through straight away, or maybe, as I mentioned, the time does not exist there the same way as it exists here. But in any case, that was the experience I had. So as a result of that, I know where I have to go. I know the path I have to take the day that I die. And knowing that there is something beyond, and being able to connect with my father through Sananda Sai and after he died, and seeing him in that place, it gives you such a peace to know that life, not life, but our existence continues. And the gurus are real. The gurus are with us. They are listening and they are guiding us. Let me read some of the messages. Most of the time, ego and are not dharmic choices. Yes. No, the ego is generally the one creating the karma. Infinity says it's like the process of birth. Awakenings, experiences are like when a child's head is out of the womb and then back again. But enlightenment, baby comes out, no way to come back again, ego gone forever. No, liberation is that. Enlightenment is a little bit of light. Liberation is when you are free from karma. So enlightenment is seeing the light, liberation is liberated from karma, so you don't have to go back. It's not no way to come back, is that you are free to come back. But you say that gone forever, it's not forever. It's gone, but look, those who reach the fourth blue ether, those beings who are graced enough to get to that space where they don't have to come back, if you choose to come back, the moment that you come back into the planet and you incarnate again, yes, you are filled with all the blessings of heaven, if you wish, but you are in earth. You can create karma again, and the ego can be recreated the moment that you are born. Probably it is anyway, but and yes, you are in a much better position to liberate yourself again, but there's no guarantee. So descending into the planet to be of service for others is kind of a dangerous thing as well. And I remember asking Shiv about this, and he told me that he once met somebody in the street. This man was living in the street and he was begging for money, and I think he was an alcoholic or something like that. He was homeless and he was taking drugs. And he recognized, he felt it, and he knew in him that he had liberated himself. He had been in that space, and he had chosen to come back to serve others. And by coming down to this planet, he had got lost. He got lost again in the Maya. The moment that you come into the planet, Maya is here. So it's easy to get lost. I mean, when you come from that space, you have such a blessing with you that I wouldn't say that this is common, that you get lost, but the possibility is there. So it's good to not take it for granted that we can just serve others. However, the attitude should be a little bit like that. As soon as we have a capacity to go into the blue ethers, shouldn't that mean that already we have something to share? Right? So as you come into the blue ethers and then you come back to earth, and the first 3 blue ethers, who knows how many times you may go and come back, because there is no liberation there. It's just you learn something and then you come back to learn some more. So how many times can you do that and you still have things to teach? So you can come back to earth and teach whatever you know while you're still in your process of cleaning up. Well, maybe the last thing I need to mention as well is what happens for those of us who are in the life and somebody dies and it's close to us. I mentioned the first days how important it is to be thankful and grateful and let them go and give them this feeling of go up, keep going, keep to the light, go to the light. Chanting mantras and prayers, and especially in community, helps a lot to support this work of the soul to go up. Chanting some mantra that the person may have chanted, if you know that that person had a personal mantra, you can chant that for 40 days. And maybe connect it to whatever your tradition does. In the Sikh Dharma, they have a Kal and the Kirtan Sohila, so you can chant these things all the while, thanking them and giving them this feeling of going up. That's for around 40 days. And much more than that is really, the soul is already beyond. It's really not necessary. And how much of that is your attachment to the person? So at some point you have to let them go and, let's say, give them their best wishes for their next incarnation, who could be anytime that we don't know. So, and yeah, quickly somebody could incarnate. Imagine if it's like 40 days going out, and then imagine that the soul wanted to incarnate immediately. It will be around a year, but then, we could enter into this kind of fascination of, has my father already incarnated, and where is he? And that's also kind of like a trap. It's a lot of attachment, and it's not helpful for him, it's not helpful for me. So we should avoid that as well. Infinity says, I don't know, maybe as for my knowledge, being enlightened is a one-way process. You have infinite identity, same as no identity. But having a limited identity, again, ego, I don't think it was enlightenment. But enlightenment and liberation are different things. Enlightenment is seeing the light, and you can see the light and have a lot of karma to work out. Seeing the light, it's like there's many different kinds of samadhi, many levels of samadhi, and you can have a moment of being one with the light, and it can bring a lot of clarity of vision, and it can open your chakras, you can develop even powers if you wish, and still have a lot of karma to work through, and still have a lot of ego. I'm sure you've seen enlightened teachers who have the capacity to talk about any spiritual teaching in the world and give you an incredibly clear spiritual meaning to that. And then they have all sorts of karmic issues in their private life. So there's lots of karma, even with enlightenment. And still, what does it mean being enlightened? You see the light, but can you hold it? Can you stay in the light? Can you stay 24 hours? It's like reaching the Kundalini to the crown or having a state of samadhi. You can have a moment of samadhi. I think most people who, access the teachings have some fleeting moments of samadhi as you are meditating. There's some moments when there is this moment of clarity. Can you hold it? How long can you hold it? Can you go into samadhi consciously? Like some yogis can enter into that state of samadhi and the whole body stops, even the heart stops. Dead. The body is dead. Is that full liberation? Does that mean that there is no more karma? I think there's two different steps. It's two different things. I could be wrong. Waheguru. What more is to be said? I hope it was a useful conversation. Death is such an important topic. If we can have the feeling that death is real, that's the one guarantee we have in life. So why leave it for the end of our life to explore it? Why not think about it? Why not explore it now? Why not even consider it? What does it mean to die? What is the process of death? Can I connect to it in some way? Can I connect to the beyond through my meditation? Well, if we know we're going to be there, I would rather explore it while I'm alive. I don't want to dedicate all my life to prepare for the moment of death. That would be a waste of life, I think, in a way. But preparing for that moment it sounds relevant to me. At the same time, I feel at peace that there is a beyond. I hope I could transmit some of that to you today. And there may be many questions coming up out of this talk. Feel free to write them. If you find anybody who may be interested in this, you can share the video. I am Ardaas Singh, if you don't know me. And until next time, Satnam. Thank you very much.